This morning in our early line, the first 100 days. Wednesday marks President Barack Obama's 100th day in office. And there is one thing about which there is no debate. He has been an activist, a busy man, but have those decisions been successful? Here to talk about the Obama administration's biggest achievements and biggest missteps so far. Joining us from Atlanta this morning, Republican political consultant Ralph Reed, and in Washington, D.C., Dee Myers, who served as press secretary to President Bill Clinton, and John Dickerson, chief political correspondent for Slate.com, both CBS News political analysts as well. Great to have all of you with us so far. So the question out there, of course, first 100 days, success or failure? Ralph, I'll start with you.
Well, I think it's really been underwhelming. I mean, this is a president who came into office with such high expectations, really stratospheric. He passes a budget that doubles the national debt in 5 years, triples it in 10 years, $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see, without any Republican support. The guy who was going to transcend the partisan divide is the most ideologically polarizing president in the history of polling. And if you just look at the personnel stuff, not the policy stuff, Commerce Secretary who had to withdraw under a cloud of ethics, Daschle's implosion, being charitable, Geithner has not really passed the audition at Treasury. And 96 days in, Erica, sitting here this morning with health care reform on the table, Obama still doesn't have a Secretary of Health and Human Services. So I would say not what they had hoped for.
Dee, I'm guessing you don't share that view.
I just wonder if Ralph and I have been living in the same country for the last 96 days. I think the headline out of the first 100 days is bold, decisive leader in difficult times. And the approval ratings across the board have been in the 60s. 60% of Americans and more think this president's doing a good job. And for the first time in years, more Americans think the country's on the right track than on the wrong track. I think President Obama came into office at a very difficult time. It's certainly been bold. He has passed a huge budget. He's spending a lot more federal money, and yet people are giving him the benefit of the doubt. He's not just going to be satisfied with dealing with this economic crisis. He also wants to remake health care, change the way we get and spend our energy, and improve our education system. And the public is giving him the benefit of the doubt as they plow forward.
John, Dee does mention some of those numbers and some fairly wide support that we've seen this remain fairly consistent over the first 100 days. But in looking at things like tackling the economy and healthcare, there has been that criticism that perhaps the president is putting too much on his plate. Is there too much there that he's trying to tackle even in this first 100 days?
Well, he's got a lot on his plate because he inherited a pretty tough situation. The real question is whether the American people think he has too much on his plate, and they don't. In fact, they're anxious for the president to tackle these problems, and the polling has shown that as he's been in office, he's been able to not only stay personally popular, but he's also been able to use a key thing for a president, which is the power to persuade. He's been able to actually change people's minds. And so that's another thing that will be good for him going forward, because he's arguably got a tougher second 100 days than the first 100, which were tough enough.
And as we look forward to that next 100 days, Ralph, what do you think the biggest challenge is for this administration?
Well, I think climate change, which looks like it's dead on arrival, it doesn't look like that even has north of 40 votes in the Senate.
Do you think that's the biggest concern, though, right now?
Well, I think it was a major priority of this administration, and it looks like it's not going to move. Health care reform, it looks like they're going to try and move forward with reconciliation, which, without getting too technical, it puts it in the budget so it can't be filibustered.
Okay,
I think that's going to cause a major blow-up.
Dee, I want to bring in this
before. He's got big challenges ahead.
Big challenges. Dee, what do you think are some of the president's biggest challenges?
Well, I think it's continuing to manage the economy, to continue to give people a sense of optimism while dealing with the tough problems, and to, how long does he have before people who lose their jobs blame him and not the previous administration? I think he's got more than another 100 days. I also think health care, as Ralph points out, is the big item coming into the Congress as we look forward. And then he's got this issue that he's somewhat created, which is dealing with the torture memos and the fallout from that. So I think the next 100 days, those will be the big three issues, and they're difficult ones. I think John's right. The next 100 will probably be tougher than the first.
Will
100.
really be a milestone. John, real quickly on this one, when we look at those memos and these torture documents, the transparency that was desired here, has it become actually more of a distraction?
It has become a distraction. That's because people on the left and right care a great deal about this. The president is basically trying to get it off his plate and move back to those things that he wants to take care of: the economy, health care, and energy.
So that'll be a lot of challenges there, and we'll be following them all right here. Ralph Reed, Dee Myers, John Dickerson, great to have you all with us this morning. Thanks.